Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dong, I have written you a letter. It's a fairly complicated issue, but it's an important issue. Working with the other side, I was in the minority. If you want to speak about disposal of property, perhaps the largest property was the Southeast Federal Center, located right on the river, and we were able to work together on a bill that created a master developer. The Senate passed this bill. As soon as the House had gotten it down, this subcommittee actually went to the site to see the site involved and to understand its value. All manner of development is ongoing there. It's probably 20 years of really wonderful development. The question has arisen concerning office space because both homes and, of course, offices, federal offices, may be developed there. We're often in need of federal office space. Homes, the ground comes with the home. But when it comes to office space, we continue to own the ground, and the master developer has to pay for the ground rent. Now, the master developer, it seems to me, has a legitimate question, wants to know whether or not being obligated to pay the ground rent, how may it compete if it wants to compete in what would be a competition of the GSA to put office space, since they do office space and other developers do office space. They argue that at the very least the reversionary interest in the property would be accelerated if they were allowed to compete. I want to make sure that the competitive process is truly competitive, but that this notion is cleared up, because it doesn't seem to me to be fair to leave it wide open. It should have been cleared up by now. And I've asked for a response to a letter because I thought it was sufficiently complicated. It should be laid out in writing within 30 days, but since you are here, and when it was early February that I sent it, I would like to hear your take on that issue.
We share your commitment to the competitive process. We also share your commitment to the redevelopment of that neighborhood. And I'm glad that you brought this issue to my attention. And quite frankly, what we're doing right now is we're taking an honest look at that question. I look forward to following up with you in terms of how we have evaluated that and our process going forward.
I have a question on the Secret Service building. You see the interest in this committee on disposing of those properties that we say everybody agrees should be disposed of. Of course, some are more complicated than others. Webster School comes up every time we meet. It is one of the most underutilized properties. Of course, it also happens to be in the middle of town, which makes it very valuable if the government were to dispose of it. GSA released an RFI on the site in October. Of course, the Secret Service is a neighbor, and I commend you on getting an RFI so we could try to figure this out. Can you now provide us an update on where we stand on this long outstanding, underutilized property, which would bring the government so much in return, were we able to dispose of it?
Absolutely. I think everybody recognizes that the Webster School has been vacant for decades. And if you actually go into that building, you can see the impact of years of neglect. And what we recognized was that, okay, time's up. It's now time for action. And what we've done through this RFA process is to see that there is significant development potential here. And we recognize that there's a way to do this that meets the expectations of the Secret Service.
Well, that was in October. When can we expect?
We're moving forward with disposal of this building.
But you don't know, you have no idea of what the time frame is.
I have asked my team in the National Capital Region to just move this now.
Please give this some priority.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of money on the table. Finally, could I ask a question about an amendment? Actually, I filed it as a bill. I'm ultimately going to ask the chairman, whose work seems to me so well with us on other amendments, if he would consider this if there is a manager's amendment. I'll call it my motherhood amendment. I learned that there were not lactation spaces for federal employees because somebody wrote me to indicate that in the Smithsonian there were lactation spaces in only one building. I immediately contacted the Smithsonian. They acted immediately. Then I thought about how this is a tourist mecca, and the federal government has given priority through several administrations to encouraging breastfeeding. We're still not getting enough of it, but it is one of the best ways to protect an infant. It's seldom that somebody would be visiting a federal office site, or for that matter, a federal employee would need lactation spaces, but this amendment that I will offer tomorrow, if it's not included in the manager's amendment, would say that the federal agency should set aside existing space, no new space, that could be available in the event that someone visiting the amendment needed lactation spaces, or a federal employee needs it. We have a very low birth rate in this country. That's why I don't see why we would need a whole room that nobody could use. But I wonder if you can identify whether or not you see any cost implications if all we're doing is saying use this room, but continue to use it for other purposes. If a mother happens to visit at this time, then of course this is a room that you will be prepared to leave for, I don't know, half hour to allow lactation to take place. Do you see any cost implications of setting aside existing space in office buildings that we own or rent?
We recognize the importance of this requirement, and we're committed to finding a solution to make it work in our federal buildings.
And you have not as yet found any cost implication if I'm talking about current space?
If it's current space, we should be able to find a way to make it work.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. The FBI